We're winning at life today. So I grew up with not the idea of a job, but the idea of people building companies around me. I was officially importing diabetes to New Zealand and doing fantastically at it as well. Completely bankrupted my whole family. We launched our first program and it had like, I don't know, man, 70, 80 New Zealand dollars, 70 or $80,000 in sales. We do about 90,000 hours of tutoring a month now. We're number one for tutoring. Guy is going to build the greatest and best hyper-personalized education experiences ever. So it's easier to talk with a bot. I just want to solve my problem, not just make money.
This is Finn Puklowski, and welcome to the TechMates podcast, where my partner Henrik and I explore how Kiwi and Aussie founders are reshaping the future and what sets them apart. Henrik and I have been part of successful companies in Silicon Valley and Europe, and now bring that expertise to partner with entrepreneurs in Australasia. By sharing the personal stories of successful Kiwi and Aussie founders and how they got here, we hope to inspire you to dream big. This is TechMates, bringing an outsider's perspective to the stories of those daring to disrupt down under. Let's dive in.
Finn, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Dude, my pleasure. My absolute pleasure.
It's 9 a.m. for you. It's midnight for Mark. Where do we find you today?
I'm down in the south of Brazil, Curitiba. It's a 2 million population city, about an hour's flight from Sao Paulo, which I think is a place that everyone knows, hour and a half from Rio. Beautiful, beautiful spot.
We want to know about how you ended up there, because you grew up in New Zealand, is that right?
I grew up in Raglan, a little beach town about half an hour from Hamilton. You can't say Hamilton. If you say I went to school in Hamilton, I'll have to put a gun to your head and deny it until death. But Raglan is a beautiful spot. Absolutely amazing school there as well. They got the Raglan Surfing Academy. So a whole bunch of the kids, they finish school at 2 p.m. and go to the beach. Good.
So you were good in school?
Yeah, I was just staying at school.
So what was it like growing up there?
I tried surfing once when I was 15 years old, and it was really hard to leave the big waves and start again at like the small waves at the front. I gave up after like a week in being in small waves. I was like, no, I can't do this. Always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I grew up with entrepreneurs in my house, my mum and my dad. So they've always run home businesses, but typically lifestyle businesses. So trying to reduce the amount of hours, they were super present in our life. They could take us to school every day, after school, take us to the beach to catch some waves. But they always had small home businesses. So I grew up with not the idea of a job, but the idea of people building companies around me. And so they were always great examples. And when I was 12 years old, they purchased a video store, United Video. So I grew up like doing retail. So, serving clients and recommending movies. And I was already working two shifts a week since I was 12 years old. So getting out and starting to save money and working with clients. And I loved work. So that was kind of the foundation of having that as an example around me. It was something that I always leaned into a lot more in later in life.
Interesting. What did you like about it?
The video store.
Well, you said you like working, yeah.
Man, what I like about working, I don't know. I loved retail, man. I loved retail. So I loved being closer to the clients. It's something I don't get to do so much these days with the scale of the business that we've built. But it was such a fantastic place to grow up. We knew all the families. We knew, you'd have all the couples coming down on a Friday night to go on a date night every single week, new things, new movies to talk about. We loved it. We absolutely loved it. It was a family business. So we were all there all the time. It was great.
That's cool.
The slow motion train wreck of, streaming coming in and eating that industry alive, and the industry's inability to adapt. That was a big lesson. So that ended up being shut down, and basically part of the reason of destroying, I guess, the little family wealth that my family had been able to put together, along with a couple of other things that came through. But it was a big lesson that, technology shifts, they create a lot of wealth and they destroy a lot of wealth, right? So you need to be at the right time, at the right place.
Damn. How old were you when that happened?
So they purchased it when I was 12, and I think it got closed when I was 23 or 24 years old in the end. Yeah.
When you finished high school, did you work in the store as well with your family?
Yeah. So, I've got this story with Brazil. I met my wife in high school. My current wife, she was doing an exchange program in New Zealand from Brazil. Young Brazilian lady called Julia, and I felt like super in love. And so when her exchange finished, I didn't want to leave. I don't want to leave her. I don't want to let go. So I went back to Brazil with her. And I spent basically a month, getting to know Brazil. Came back to New Zealand, worked for a few months, saved up some money, and went and spent my summer holidays there. So when I lived with her for 3 months. And that 3 months, it was a fantastic experience, but I didn't speak Portuguese. I couldn't get a job. I didn't have a business. I didn't have any money. So eventually it came to an end, right? That there was kind of like this first big international experience that I fell in love with the country. So we ended up breaking up, and I went back to New Zealand. And on the first week back at school, I was just doing my last year of high school. I was actually starting a computer sciences course, and I went to say hello to the teacher because I'd missed a few weeks of school. I went to say hello, and I like reached out my hand to shake his hand, and he wouldn't shake my hand. It was like a really weird experience. I think maybe he's used to disrespectful kids or something. I got super upset, and I left high school that same day. I never went back. I was like, I'm a man now. I'm gonna go build my life. I'm gonna go do my thing. People need to respect me. Some sort of thing like that.
Did you have thoughts about doing that, or did that idea just...
No, I don't think so. It just like came out of like left field, man. It just came out of left field. So I just went back and told my mom, and I was like, Mom, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. I'm gonna build businesses. And for some reason she was like, yeah, of course. Which I just like, now I look back and I'm like, what? Absolute madness. Fantastically supportive mother.
So what happened next? Did you start your first business?
Yeah, so I started working at that video store for 1 year, and during that year, I found this little opportunity. I'd done a whole bunch of stuff. So I'd done like e-commerce stores with imported products from Alibaba, like drop shipping, all those sorts of real typical 1.0 entrepreneurial models, right? It was great. It was great fun. And eventually I met these guys that were importing American sweets. So like all your chocolate bars and your candy and Coca-Cola and all that sort of stuff. I started selling it in that little video store. Okay. And it was like, became like 20 or 30% of the revenue. In those days, I think Mexican cola was like a massive seller, Twinkies, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, man. I was officially importing diabetes to New Zealand and doing fantastically at it as well. Yeah. So I scaled that up, and then I launched a website with Grab One. And my sister was helping me. We put together a website, launched with Grab One, sold like $40,000 worth of product.
What is Grab?
Grab One was like a Groupon clone in New Zealand. Yeah.
So like a Groupon clone in New Zealand.
No. I like launched like my little lolly shop, my little candy store online. Yeah. And it exploded. So we sold like heaps on the first day, had to go and get all the stock and organize logistics. And that was kind of like the beginning of scale inside e-commerce. And that one little e-commerce store turned into, I think, 10 or 11 retail stores across all of the New Zealand shopping malls.
That was United Sweets, right?
That was United Sweets, yeah. And that ended up being what I call like my first MBA, because I pushed super hard. I didn't have any capital. I tried to grow really fast, super aspirational, super young, not many guardrails, not many good mentors, and eventually completely bankrupted my whole family. Lost my parents' house and their car. And that was part of like the exact same time as closing down of the video stores. Ended up just like imploding the whole family, which was,
oh my God.
And some people that had supported us and some franchisees and stuff like that. It was super hard. That was part of my entrepreneurial journey as like a 24-year-old. Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah, man. What happened, if you don't mind going into it? Like what were the lessons?
Yeah. The lessons were like, I was outgrowing my cash flow way too fast. So I had like negative working capital built into the business model, which I wouldn't really do again.
Were you taking on a lot of debt to open up new shops and buy inventory?
Yeah. So we took on a couple of $100,000 in debt. My family had personally guaranteed that. There was also rental bonds for the malls. So you have to have like a kind of security deposit in place with the lease with these big shopping malls, which is totally fair. But basically, man, growing too fast, not enough capital base, not good, not enough experience in managing conflict. When things go wrong, how do you have those discussions? How do you plan around that? So there's a whole bunch of lessons there. So yeah, I always call that my first MBA, and that was the last venture before building Fluency. So after that, I spent the standard term as a bankrupt. I had to go and do some jobs and work and survive, which is fantastic. My wife got back with me about 6 months before going bankrupt as well. So had a super strong partner that moved back to New Zealand and was living with me through that, which was great for us, because if you go through those really hard experiences, you realize that you can pretty much do anything after that. Everything else seems like you're living life on easy mode,
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you, like, after this experience, I'm just curious how you sort of ended up deciding, yeah, that was great, I'm going to go back into entrepreneurship. Why did you not just get a job?
Yeah. So it's kind of like, first, it's the only thing that I think I was good at. So I've been good at creating ideas. I'm good at making solutions. I'm good at taking the actual execution. So not just a thinker, but a doer. And it's kind of like I say to people, it's like you drowned. It's like you drowned in the ocean. You're a surfer and you drowned in the ocean, but you're like a surfer. So you just want to go back to the water. It's just, it attracts you. And also I think age is a really important thing. So people are willing to take bigger risks when they're younger. Right? So going through that, I mean, I was already a dude with some scar tissue by the time I was like 24, 25, 26, right? I had a good friend of mine that told me once that doing business is like playing a video game, and you get to like level 4. You're on like level 4, you like understand the game, you've got some guns, you've done pretty well, and then you die. But like you respawn on like level 4 because like the experience that you get is compounding, right? You don't lose the experience. So like you need to be able to move super quick and learn super quick to build great enterprises. You know, like, I didn't do an MBA. I didn't get like the standard, like here's how to build a company. I'm not like a YC founder. It's just like you just go out and break things, right?
But you didn't even finish high school, right?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Wait, so what was that whole process of like, just, I mean, take us back to that emotional, like when that whole thing happened, collapsed, like what did you feel? I mean, how did you like, did you have doubts? Were you super like upset? How did you deal with that on a personal level?
On a personal level, yeah, man, no, it's really, really hard. I feel for anyone that goes through that, but it's the price that you pay if you want to take on risk. It's the price you pay if you want to be inconsequential or if you want to go for it or go all in, right? I am so lucky to have just the most amazing family. Like they've never guilt tripped me or made me feel bad for that. They've always been all in with me all the way through. Pretty proud to say that like with this next business, you know, Fluency and everything that we've built in South America, it was the first thing that we did was get the cash together and buy them a house. Like we paid me and my wife before we had a house to live in. We saved up the money, you know, from building a pretty awesome company and went out and bought my parents a house in cash. And we're like, here you go. Now you're safe. You know, debt's paid. Let's go. And I'm pretty lucky to just have a really good family around me, man. It never broke us, never put anything in between us. I think we're way stronger because of it.
Did you doubt yourself? And when that whole thing happened, did you doubt your ability? Because I assume like you went from like, as I know that feeling when you're like on top of the world, things are going fast, it's going really well, and then like got a curveball coming out of nowhere, and then shit just starts cascading and compounding and collapsing. Like, yeah, what did you have any self doubt?
Honestly, no. I mean, it's all just a game. It's a game, right? Building businesses is a game. It's about timing. It's about patience. It's about the right idea, the right time. It's about insistence, right? You have to be super insistent. Yeah, resilient as hell because basically it's just every day getting up and getting punched in the face like consistently, right? It's like being the worst boxer in the world. You just got to take it. So no, I didn't have self doubt, but I did try and learn from the experience. So like reflected super deeply on what were the mistakes and actually I think that's something that's super important to talk about. Like, have you guys heard about Endeavor? It's coming in New Zealand now. So Endeavor is like a global accelerator, business accelerator that doesn't take any equity. It doesn't, you know, live off of the backs of entrepreneurs being successful, and it's run by other entrepreneurs globally. And so I'm an Endeavor entrepreneur here.
Yeah, you were the first New Zealander, right?
Yeah, well, I'm an Endeavor entrepreneur yeah. So Endeavor, guys, is an organization 100% run by other founders around the world. It's a nonprofit where you can go for advice. You can get connected with, you know, the founder of this and this segment, or I've got someone that's going through this challenge with hiring a CTO or firing or anything it is for mentorship sessions, right? And something that attracted me to that was obviously I'd gone bankrupt and I just had nobody that I could truly look to. Right? Like I had a pretty average like family lawyer and an average family accountant, right? It was like completely inadequate for what I needed. And so, yeah, we're bringing Endeavor to New Zealand now, which is super, super exciting. It's 100% like self-funded by the entrepreneurs involved. So everybody has to put in the cash to get it started. And we're looking forward to expanding that around New Zealand just to be able to give this type of good advice to founders from other founders, not necessarily from VCs or from your unqualified uncle, but people that are actually living it and doing it in real time, right? So I'm super excited about that. That's become a big part of like making sure that the young Finns that are out there that are about to blow something up because they don't have the experience can try and like blow it up with a little bit more elegance.
That's cool. I love it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
totally.
after all of that happened in New Zealand, you spent a few years kind of sorting things out, and then you moved with your wife back to Brazil.
Yeah. So I met a guy at a bar in Brazil, and he was this like young English teacher. His name is Javi Carneiro. And we just like exchanged ideas. He likes to say that I was a Kiwi who was like on holiday in Brazil that didn't speak Portuguese. And I like to say that he was a English teacher living in the south of Brazil in a city that no foreigner has ever visited in the history of mankind. So he was just like stuck.
Are those true?
Yeah, it's 100% true, man. My truth, not his. Okay, my truth. Yeah, he was a good guy, and so we just met and we became mates. We were basically just like drinking some beers and having a chit chat. And a year later, I dropped him a message on Facebook. Never talked to him again. I was like, hey, I'm looking for opportunities in Brazil. My wife wants to come back and be a doctor. I need to build a business. Like I'm a business builder. It's what I do. And he had this idea, which was Fluency Academy. And he came to me and he was like, we went and had some sushi, and I was like, hey, this is the idea. I'm going to build a content community, and that content community, I'm going to have an English training product to help people learn English faster. I think this is what's wrong with the current market. This is what's wrong with the current product. I went to his like mom's little 25-meter apartment or 40-meter apartment, super tiny. We sat there for 2 days, and he was like, whoa, this is my guy. This is going to be my business partner. He's an executor,
He said that about you.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Because he's a fantastic like ideas guy, super charismatic, great communicator. I'm a doer, right? I sat down, we hired some teachers in London. We got like the course, like learning management system, and started like putting the content together and the pedagogical framework and all that sort of stuff. And so we started getting traction. So the next week we were like, okay, I'm joining the business with you. He moved to New Zealand, lived with me and my wife for 4 months. It was like
So you guys were in Brazil or New Zealand?
We're in Brazil during all this here. So this is like on holiday, visiting my parents-in-law, in the middle of the year, having a chit chat with him. I was saying I want to build a business. So we spent a couple of days at his family apartment, and then he moved to New Zealand and lived with me there for 4 months. And during that 4 months, we made the content for the course. We launched a community. We got built out this like kind of Facebook pages, right, back in the day, like creating videos, teaching people, English with small tips, like little tips and explainer vids and stuff like that. And that scaled quite quickly. And then we launched our first program, and it had like, I don't know, man, 70, 80 New Zealand dollars, like 70 or $80,000 in sales for the first like program, like really heavily organic driven. And 6 months later, we did it again, and it was like, I don't know, $300,000 or $400,000 in sales. And then 6 months later, we did it again, and it was like $100, $1 million, $2 million in sales. So it just started scaling super quickly.
And these were like courses that you would be teaching, or like what would be one-on-one tutoring, or what would it be?
This is digital courses, but opened every 6 months. So we'd have like 6-month training session with weekly live classes, and big community of students together. Yeah, exactly. And that ended up being the first little nucleus of what Fluency is today. So it started off as digital courses teaching English. We scaled all the way through.
Were you focused on Brazil?
100% in Brazil at this stage. Why in Brazil? I understand it's got 95% of the population don't speak English. It's got about 50,000 teachers, one of the highest schools per capita in the world. It's just a major pain point here. Major pain point. So lots of people can't. They do years and years and years of courses. Super broken model. So like 2 or 3 very large franchise players where they sell people into these course programs where they're only doing 2 hours of study a week. You need a much higher frequency and touch with the language. You need like 6 to 10 hours a week probably to be able to scale like efficiently and learn super fast. So it's a very broken model here. And that was just something I landed into. My co-founder was an English teacher, right, for 10 years before that. So it was like, he kind of had like a little bit of the feeling of the North, and we built this program, and it was super successful. So that scaled out to 10 million US in revenue. We started with English.
Bootstrapped. You get to 10 million.
This is fully bootstrapped. Yeah.
US in revenue, just bootstrapped doing courses. Over what time period?
And that was 3.5 years, 4 years.
Damn. That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So it was like three eggs growth every year for 3 years. You get to like 1, then you had 3, then you had like about 10. Damn.
Yeah. And so the play here was like creator economy to do the demand generation paired with a really, really clear need. People have a willingness to pay to study with like famous teachers or teachers that they think are experts in their field. It's kind of like masterclass, but around one niche. And so there's some really cool things about that, and there's some really fragile things about that. So one of the most fragile things was like it was just one guy, so it was like a lot of key man risk, right? So we started building.
Was the main teacher.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Damn.
We needed to, scale out of that. And so we went sideways and we opened up 7 different language courses, and we built a content community with about 40 teachers. And then we ended up going deeper into English and scaling out. So he hasn't made content in about 3 years. He's fully out of that game. And we've managed to transform the business into a massive content-led community with about 35 million followers total across Instagram and across YouTube, driving about 50% organic acquisition across the entire business. So started off as like digital courses. We also do flashcard training. We've got an app called MemHack that we built, which has about 300 million content studied every year. And over the last 2 years, we've made a really big push into the tutoring segment. So we do about 90,000 hours of tutoring a month now, one-on-one and one-to-group on our platform called Fluency Talks, where we're kind of getting a very efficient scale up of content where the student has learned like the base vocabulary, base pronunciation, and then they're going straight into conversation classes and trying to control that whole value curve, right? During that period as well, we did our Series A with an American fund called General Atlantic. So that was a $50 million US dollar round just to invest in the business and scale things up. And through that there, we've been able to build out a fantastic tech and product team. We've got about 350 employees. We operate in Latin America, we operate in Brazil, and we're about to launch a global product teaching English and English globally as well. So it's been a wicked journey until here.
Wow. And your entire time has been focused on Brazil. So every single one of your customers is Brazilian.
No, so we have already got small millions of dollars of revenue outside of Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's about 500 to 600 million Spanish speakers, and we've got English teaching, Italian, French, and Portuguese. We do a little bit of kind of like nonprofit teaching. So we teach the refugees that come across the northern border from Venezuela into Brazil. We've had about 38,000 people pass through that training program, which has been awesome. It's 100% for free in partnership with the UN, with Entrepreneurship, and we teach English to Ukrainians as well.
Wow,
all of
that's cool.
Non-profit stuff. Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
So how do you keep that? So you started with like one person kind of doing courses. Now then you have this community-led model. How do you keep the bar, high enough, right? When you get a lot of folks on the platform teaching, it's very kind of varied quality. How do you sort of keep high enough bar? How do you like police that, under that?
There's 2 products, right? So there's the courses tract, which is just a single product, very, very large, extensive product where you put the student on the right level after doing testing.
Uh-huh.
So that one there is quite easy to control. The tutoring, we have got 500 tutors on the platform. When we hire them, it's not like a marketplace model where we just take a percentage in between. So we do direct hiring of the teachers, and we sell annual plans to be able to make the economics stack up for the student and for the business. So we hired them, we trained them. We've got, rating systems very similar to Uber for after a class, you're rating how the teacher was, what was giving qualitative feedback on every single class. So the marketplace model is pretty easy to control. And the digital courses tracked, we're super careful not to just have tons of different products. It's just, you can study a language and it's going to be personalized to your level no matter what.
Wow. Finn, how do you go from the idea, like a lot of people watching, we're interested in like, how do you go from idea to just like massive scale? Like what is involved in that, right? Like you made it sound super easy, super straightforward. Were there kind of bumps along the road, questions, like decisions you had to make, kind of like, looking back, you're like, oh man, like we got lucky there, like we had made the wrong decision there?
Yeah, man. I mean, we're in, first of all, the market size, right? So like, it doesn't matter how good you are, but if you're playing in a tiny market, like if you want to teach Māori to New Zealanders, you're playing in like 1 million person market, something like that. We're talking about Brazil, 120 million people. 95% of them can't speak English. You understand that if you scale, if you win, it's relatively exponential. Maybe not exponential, but it's a big enough market size, right? There's a whole bunch of things on timings. Like when we were growing in Latin America, ad market penetration was like just starting to become a big thing. So you're talking about pretty cheap advertising inside Meta and Google. Search was already pretty saturated, but like the mobile migration from Facebook onto like Facebook app and then Instagram and YouTube So really good, tailwinds behind us to be able to invest in paid marketing, have like
That was
a
like
relatively
2015, 2016, around that time.
that was 2017 through to 2020 through to COVID. Yeah, something scaling up through that period. And so like you need like some pretty good tailwinds. We could invest in marketing and have a CAC payback within like a few months. Like so you're putting in money and you're getting some back relatively quick, which is just kind of like a little bit of luck and also just the way that we priced our product, the way that we sold. And then not accepting that was enough. So there was a whole bunch of strategic weaknesses. Like, we didn't understand our clients well. We didn't have good data tracking. We had over dependence on a single acquisition channel, on a single creator. And we just had to year over year invest and try and, get over those little weaknesses.
And I'm sure if you were seeing that opportunity, I'm sure there were other people also kind of going up in the same market, right? A lot of competitors.
Yeah.
Was that true? Like what are they still around? What do they do wrong?
Yeah, it's really funny. Yeah. I think like we thought that I remember we used to always say to each other, like, oh man, someone's going to do it. Someone's going to go and like organize this creator economy and get all the different teachers to like support their corporate brand of like language school solution or something. And it's just like realistically, like people weren't really doing it. A couple of our competitors, like the creator led model is quite hard to be able to do sustainably because they start making a little money and they don't want to do it anymore, or it's quite hard psychologically on the teachers when you're dealing with being famous. Like the majority of our creators have between 1 and 4 million followers, right? Like they get, people take photos of them in the streets.
Wow. Do you find them already like that, or do you help grow them into those?
Yeah, no, we help grow them. So one of our largest cases is a teacher that we got with 2,000 followers. She just started making her first videos. And we've scaled her up to about 6 million followers and a household brand over here.
Wow.
Yeah, so we've got 60 people in our back office that help do all the content curation. We've got film studios. We get them to meet up every single month somewhere in the world. So like we'll get them to meet up in like Rio, 40 people at a content house and just make like 400 to 500 pieces of content in a few days, So like this is our expertise.
Together, like get all the teachers to create content together.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not just individual people.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a very big thing, which is like, you just need to let the creator create. So try not to like tell them how to do their job, but facilitate their job, right? So having great cameras, having great, taking them to places, take them to New York, take them to Miami, take them to the Football World Cup, whatever it's going to be, so that they can make the content around that narrative or that theme that's going on. So yeah, but it's an interesting thing. Like most people are worried that people are going to steal your idea, but realistically, the world doesn't have many people that can actually execute. I think ideas are worth like jack shit, absolute jack shit. Like if you can't execute, there's nothing. And majority of people can't execute, right?
Why do you think that is?
Why can't people execute? I don't know. I got to ask you guys. You guys are the ones that are trying to find the next founder that's going to explode, right? That's a question for you guys. Why can't people?
Right? Like, I don't think there's anything special about the people who execute. It's just like they just keep doing it. And there's something that drives you, right? Like maybe it's a desire, like chip on your shoulder or whatever that is. Or
Yeah, for sure. We talk about when like I go to do therapy every single week. I don't have any anxiety or depression or anything like that. I think it's like going to the gym. You gotta do the mind gym. Realistically, like the people that are founders doing it for some reason and they normally don't know why. Doing it because you want to prove yourself to your mom or you got a chip on your shoulder. That's like a huge one. Like there's no doubt that the energy to get up every single day and do 12-hour days for years is because I went bankrupt, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no doubt.
Yeah, it's something to prove.
Yeah. So use it as rocket fuel, right? Understand it and lean into it and use it.
What do you learn in therapy? What have you learned in therapy?
What have I learned in therapy? First of all, like I'm an advocate because I think that a lot of guys are pretty shut down emotionally, right? So like, I think it's great to be able to go. I want to make sure that that's super clear to just like anyone that's listening. It's good. It's not solve a problem. It's just to go a little bit deeper and build a process of being able to like listen to your thoughts, understand why you might be reacting to something and try and getting out of like thinking fast, thinking slow. So like doing a little bit more thinking slow and being able to be more a bit aware and less on automatic systems for all the decisions that we make day by day. I think that's super, super good because it's a kind of anti-victim mentality. It like gives you agency and autonomy to be able to push forward with your life. I like that.
When did you get into that? What made you get into that?
7 years ago. What made me get into that? I was recommended by my wife. Yeah, she was just like, "That's really good." I did it when I was a teenager, XYZ. And then I was like, it took a while to get comfortable with it. But once I understood it, I was like, okay, yeah, cool. I'm recommending this to my executive team. I'm recommending this to friends, not as like a band-aid, but like as a consistent solution, just like going to the gym or having a good diet. Like it's compoundingly good. If you can afford
I think
it,
the sad thing about therapy is kind of that everybody gets into it when they have a problem, right?
I think in New Zealand or in countries with public health systems, it's not something that can necessarily be available to everyone at all times, right? So we build our mental health system in New Zealand is built around 6 sessions that can be partly government funded. It's one of the costs of having like a more equal society or a government led society for health, right? And in Brazil, it's 100% private. So I think people just look at it in a different way.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
So
yeah, guys.
Tell us more about the business. So like what's the vision? Where are you taking it? I mean, kind of how do you see the market evolving? What excites you every day about it still?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing was like moving just from innovative go-to-market to high quality product. And for us, that meant like building out our platforms, having all the data points on our student, having automatic testing across the product so you can kind of statistically prove whether or not you are or not making a difference in comparison to other benchmarking schools or other methodologies. So this is something that we've been able to build out over these last few years. And we finally have a very good vision of like what levers to pull upon in terms of like how often a student needs to study to have better results and how fast you can move someone with a bell curve across like A1 to B1 or A1 to C1 and whether or not it's worth their time spending more time on the content consuming or more time on like the output and learning. Mm-hmm. So it makes me really excited because we have reinvested our success into building an actual great product. So like going from just really good go-to-market innovation to building a fantastic product. The tutoring side as well has really, really, really excited me because by using Brazilian teachers, we've been able to do conversational classes earlier in the journey for the student. So he's like at a B1 level and he's already having conversation. Whereas the majority of our competitors use foreign teachers, which mean that you need to be at a higher bar before you can start it. So we've scaled that out. We're number one online for languages in Brazil. We're number one for tutoring as well and getting a lot of impact. And I'm starting to just see that it's not just like a venture scalable cool company that's making money, but starting to have really, really, really big impact on the product side, which makes me be able to get up every single day and work super, super, super. Where do we see the market going? AI is going to build the greatest and best hyper-personalized education experiences ever. It's going to be like a golden age for the student, right? That there can be a total risk or a total opportunity for the actual business operator. And so we have to turn that into an opportunity. For us, we need to align this technology shift with what we think is our moat, which is our community. So we're using AI to expand the one-to-one contact between our famous teachers and the students by doing avatar teaching. So this is where we're investing heavily in at the moment. It's like you keep leaning into that community-led business approach of like go to market. You're expanding the reach by having one-to-one high-touch experiences with cloned versions of the teachers. Also, we see that when students interact with bots or interact with avatars, they actually have like a lower inhibition. So like, it's easier to talk with a bot.
No one's judging them, right?
Exactly. So we're putting this at the front of the product and we're doing that freemium. There's a whole bunch of people that are working in this space and they have to monetize their app to survive, right? First of all, there's real gross margin consequences of using AI in your stack as a product, right? It costs it's costing us like $1 per class in the amount of the different LLMs that are involved, right? So you've got a cost involved and these guys, that's their only product. So they need to very quickly go through like a high touch onboarding where you're like getting as much information from the user and then paywall them, right? There's like real typical app model. So we're being able to navigate and do that for freemium and like a freemium space because our LTV from our tutoring and from our digital courses business is $400 to $500 per student. It's about 4 to 5 times larger than the highest LTV that we can find in the app space from Duolingo, from Speak, from these different competitors. Yeah. So this is something that really excites us. It's like, I think how can we use this to as like a defensive and offensive structure? So like offensively, we're using it inside an app to be able to bring audiences from social media to a space that we control, a growth space that we control, right? Defensively, I think that everyone is going to be investing in this space. And so by being able to make it freemium, you're not allowing too much capital to like flow into this region to compete with you, because we're kind of like, it's kind of like when you open source LLM models, right? Like kind of like what Meta was trying to do a while there, or DeepSeek was doing. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
are most of your customers are they direct to consumer, just individuals, or are you selling to schools, organizations?
Yeah. No, so we're 90 something percent B2C. We bought a YC backed company called awari.com.br, which is a skills platform. It teaches people how to be developers, product managers, designers, all this sort of stuff. We purchased that and built out a skills plus English B2B platform that we sell directly to employers, but we don't sell to schools. We don't do co-selling or partnership selling. And that's starting to scale and get some pretty cool impact at the moment. But yeah, our core DNA is B2C. I love the defensibility of building brands, building content, building audiences. The typical playbook of everyone wants to be B2B SaaS. It's just not who we are, and it's not what makes us special at all.
Yeah.
I love if you make it work in like prosumer or consumer, it's amazing, right? Like it's amazing controlling that relationship at scale. It's just fantastic. It's just very hard. Very, very hard.
So the one thing that I have a question about is like, how do you think about like lifetime value, right? Because at the end of the day, someone learns English, they become fluent, or they get to this certain level, they pass the test, they enter that university, whatever they need, then they're done with you, right? Do they churn out? Like, how do you have to constantly keep reacquiring students? How do you think about that?
Yeah. So we're very careful not to try and build a product that we don't want people paying for a crappy product that doesn't work for many years. That's not what we want. I'm okay with the students piling in on LTV in the tutoring platform because you need to use it or you lose it with a language. But I'm not okay with them paying for a digital subscription year over year over year and not learning. So we're super clear on that. We've been real clear on that with our stakeholders and investors since day one, with our students as well. We do bundling. So we go outside our niche and buy other products so that we can have digital subscriptions that make sense to our students. That's one way of doing it. The tutor platform is another way of doing it. We also built a new model this year, which is like in Brazil, it's one of the largest influencer markets in the world.
Why is that?
This is a little bit like culturally, the amount of people that use social media is super high. The amount of people that are creators, I think it's the highest concentration of creators in the world is in Brazil. We've also got like payments infrastructure and all this stuff built around the influencer economy. So platforms that are just 100% specified to that, and a whole bunch of people that do things like sell a course teaching you how to make a course, which sounds ridiculous, but it ends up building this gigantic kind of digital marketing segment inside the country.
Yeah, interesting.
This segment exists, and so we're doing kind of like what we call co-launching with the rest of the segment. So these are the people that have got these big online digital audiences in schools, and we're cross-selling into each other's bases and, running these online events together, which is another way of expanding out LTV without falling into the trap of just a crappy product on manual renewal.
You started with language learning, you hit a niche, kind of got lucky, tailwinds. Then you saw this whole like creator economy. Now you're basically helping grow creators. You're creating an infrastructure and ecosystem for them to actually monetize. But it sounds like there's a bigger opportunity around that, right? Where like you just empower creators. You become like a marketplace for creators to monetize different skills. Like, is that how you're seeing it, or is English learning like the core?
Yeah, no, I wanna stick on the language market. So I mean, Duolingo is the only category leader. It's depending on how much Trump is screwing us over. It's a $10 billion business, right? Maybe a $12 billion business. So there's no good category leaders inside language learning globally. Tech is a super fragmented, not the best market in the world. So we think that we can get there and win, and we think that the prize is big enough. Naturally, we build an ecosystem around us, but it's not the goal. It's not the goal. We want to try and solve this problem.
Okay, what about like this idea that with AI, learning languages will become sort of irrelevant? You have real-time translation, you have AR classes, like at some point I can talk to anybody in the world in my own language, and like they'll immediately in real time understand it in their own language, and like we'll just communicate the way we're talking now, but just like I'll be speaking Japanese, you'll be speaking like Ukrainian or something.
Yeah. I'd love to return the question to you. Like, do you think that there's a space in culture and experience and business and trust and love, and relationships for language.
Yeah.
It'll be impact for sure. What will be the long term market size after these impacts? I even think like, if we extrapolate out like a AGI in 20 years, like, is learning a language going to be a hobby that people want to invest in just because we're investing in education and we're doing things with our time, we're working less, or not? I'm pretty sure it will. I'm pretty sure it will exist and it will change. And I'm hoping it will be more accessible. Like the average guy on the street here in Brazil that's working at like a gas station and earning like $400 like the minimum wage, he's not stopping. Yeah, he's not stopping to learn languages, really, realistically. Right. So like, does our market size change as people invest less time in work long term? If these bets come through with AI, like, what's that future look like? Are people studying and learning and investing in hobbies, or are people not? I'm pretty sure there will be. I'm not sure of the market size and how it'll be, but I'm pretty sure it's going to exist.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It's a good question. I mean, I do buy that in some kind of like, AGI world, like we're going to need things to do. We're going to want authentic connection, speaking a language at a very high level. Yeah, like we'll still go watch live concerts, right? Because we'll appreciate the art. We'll still go like watch somebody do cool skateboard tricks. We'll want to try to replicate that. We'll still want to play sports. All those things will happen. So yeah, language learning, I think in that kind of world will still be something that you can get good at and demonstrate some kind of proficiency, show off, obviously meet people from different culture. But I do kind of wonder what that looks like, right? And even right now, if you look on TikTok, there's always like kind of influencers who like show off how they can speak like 5 languages, 6 languages, right? People watch that stuff because it also inspires them to be like, oh, wow, somebody can do that. I can
correct.
do that. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I always talk with our team, like, if you look at Google search terms or traffic, like, there's a massive market for English learning. It exists, right? But with the creator-led model, we're quite often kind of creating the demand. So you're impacting someone with the top of funnel audience creation, and they're like, wow, they get interested. And then you're creating this like interest in the topic. And then eventually they understand, okay, I'm interested in learning, and they go for it. So I'm not sure as well, like, I'm quite sure that we could pivot around into other educational experiences using the same core process to survive, but I prefer not to think like that and just build for the the segment that we're in.
But it's probably also
a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's probably also other languages, right? I mean, now, like nowadays, you only need English basically to get away with in almost every country, but still there's people learning Japanese or whatever.
Yeah, man. Russian, there's like some great startups. There's like a business, I think it's called VIP Kids out of Singapore, which is for Chinese families' kids around the world. So you've got this massive migration, 1.3 billion Chinese people or something, right? And then their kids, they're losing touch with Mandarin. And so there's this massive business just built around making sure that they're learning Mandarin. It's like phenomenal, right?
Yeah, VIP Kid,
Yeah. So
I think they're actually English learning though.
Yeah. Okay. So there's another one that's based out of Singapore, which is teaching Mandarin, which is fantastic. Okay. That's wrong name.
Yeah.
But so it's a really big market, right? And the solutions are really bad. Mark, you've had some personal interest in this over time, right? Like it hasn't attracted capital, hasn't attracted good product people.
Right. And Finn, what do you think? Like, why do you think it's been a dearth of good products and capital? Like, what is it like? Just people just aren't good at building product, or they just haven't hit upon the right combination of like community plus product? Because like you look at companies like Practica, right? That just like exactly what you're talking about, like just like AI avatar and just like hit you with a paywall after a certain number of interactions. Yeah. What do you think you guys got right? And like,
I think it's
Go ahead.
It's a mixture of all solutions. So you need to balance input and output, right? So you need to like get the content in the person's head. That can be memorization games. That can be like association. There's so many different methods for it. And you need to get them out there and speaking until that clicks in the head. They're like, okay, cool. This is like working for me. If you look at like Duolingo is a fantastic example of how they have to have trade-offs for engagement and learning outcomes. So they prioritize engagement over learning outcomes publicly, right? Because it's so hard to keep people in an educational experience where they want to keep learning more and more and more. So I think it hasn't attracted the highest caliber founders over time.
I think you've told me that like Duolingo's whole, because I was telling you like I've never met anybody who's learned a language from Duolingo, right? And you were saying like they're not trying to teach you a language; they're trying to basically replace Instagram, trying to replace TikTok, they're trying to replace like whatever like kind of dopamine like inducing
Yeah.
brain rotting
Yeah.
thing that you're doing.
Yeah. The
Like, say,
founder there is super open about it.
Mhm.
He's super open about it. And there's really serious trade-offs about whether or not that's actually in the interest of the student. But I think it's something that the market will sort out over time, right? So you've got more like heavy users, which are going to go deeper and want higher, way larger explanations and want way higher touch. And then you've got this kind of like Americans French for their summer holiday, which is kind of what I think of Duolingo. It's like you're inspiring this like kind of middle class. That's where they make their money, right? It's like over 7 or 8% monetization into the base, and majority of it coming out of North America. Learning Romance languages to travel. It's very different than like I'm a English student in a developing nation that needs to get a visa or access to like scientific material or a better job at like a hotel desk because I can speak English. Like that's what we're looking at. That's 100% our market. So I'd rather go and keep trying to put together a great solution for English teaching in Indonesia, in Vietnam, in all of South America, in developing nations where you've got poverty, where learning a language actually changes your life, than like teaching the American housewife French. That's not what we do.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm surprised and impressed that you've been able to monetize in Brazil, right? I mean, it's a very like the average. I don't know what the average salary is. You were saying $400 a month, right? Like you're selling courses for what? You said $70 a course, right?
No. We're $400.
Wow, it's a month's salary. That's expensive, right? How do you? So how did you? I mean, how did you figure that out? What is it that people?
It's about the same price as an offline course for 2 hours a week.
But yours is like ongoing. It's like every single day, right?
8 hours of tutoring and about 6 hours of asynchronous content a week. 8 hours of tutoring a month.
This is one-on-one tutoring?
Yeah, this is, yeah.
Wow. How do you make the unit economics work?
Yeah.
If they can't do that for offline, you can do like 4 times that online. Yeah,
so it's Brazilian teachers at scale. It's a really strong mix of one-to-one and one-to-group teaching. And then 30% of class time is one-to-one, 70% is one-to-group, with an average of 3.2 students per class. It is Brazilian teachers are 46% cheaper than the cheapest global comparison we can find, which is candidly.com, whether you're doing like gig economy teaching. They're not teachers, they're just people like Uber drivers getting in and having chit chats with students.
Got it.
So yeah, it's a few mixes, and then the willingness to pay is high because you're studying with your famous teacher that you've got a one-to-one relationship with over social media. So we run like 80% global. We run 80% gross margins globally, because of this perfect mixture of like a good mixture of labor, really smart thinking about the way that we teach with the synchronous tutoring, mixture of a high willingness to pay to study with creators. Yeah, it's interesting. It's got the economics of a SaaS business.
That's interesting. With AI kind of taking over social media and AI generated content, AI influencers, whatever, like how are you seeing that impact?
I was going to ask, what's your experience with how people react or students react to AI avatars? Like, how do they perceive them? Are they happy to engage with them? Is there like a little weirdness about it?
Yeah, no. So they're more willing to make mistakes, which is one of the most important things that you could ever have with needing to learn a language. Like, we are our biggest block in learning a language. Like, if you go and I did Mandarin for like 4 or 5 years, and you sit in a class and like you kind of open your mouth for a few seconds every class, right? Maybe a minute in an hour. So like losing that inhibition and being able to speak up is a really big differential maker. So we're seeing that students are, they engage super quickly with it, and they're way less scared.
Is there any hesitancy towards like speaking to an avatar?
Yeah. I think that there is a hesitancy. It's definitely not the same as speaking with a teacher. I don't think it's going to replace. I think it's going to be a combination of them both. But like, it's just like you've used voice mode on GPT. Do you ever like, you could, I mean, for today, we could be like, hey, can you prep me for this podcast? Here's the link to a few videos from the guys. Have a look at what type of questions they're going to make, try and put me on the spot. I've done it for like preparation for board meetings, or we're using voice mode for all these different use cases already, right? So I think it's super applicable for language learning. Lots of people will just use GPT as their language tutor as well.
Yeah,
which would be,
that's a good
that'd be
point.
fantastic. So I see it as like more and more people will have access to great learning solutions, which is just great. Yeah, we want to make money, but we want people to be able to learn languages globally. That would be
Yeah,
great.
and it's a great way to scale it.
Yeah,
Like basically AI taking over social media, and
yeah.
you're going to see AI influencers. A lot of the content you're going to see is going to be AI generated. How do you think about your model, your influencers, and like the actual human element in a world like that, where it feels like at some point, like most of the content we'll see on social media will be AI generated?
Yeah, it's a really, really, really good question. I'm not sure it will be first. And if it is, okay, like we roll with the punches. My core IP is my community and kind of like the content creators themselves, right? So being able to move their channel or their content strategy into AI first content strategy, we can do that as long as we've got them as partners and we kind of own those assets, right? Being like quite frank. So in my time, in just a few years of running this business, things have gone from 100% Facebook to 100% Instagram to like a mixture of YouTube and Instagram to now TikTok being super important for audience creation and a whole bunch of other things, but terrible for conversion. Like their paid media is still absolutely terrible. We're big spenders, and we work directly with the platforms down here in South America and at Google every week, working directly with their teams. And the way that people consume content is consistently changing. So May last year, we had like major algorithm changes inside Instagram, and where there was like 18 months where they were copying TikTok with Reels, and that was fantastic for organic growth and being able to get to new audiences cheaply. And now they've changed your algorithm again to putting content in front of you that's not really creator led. It's just kind of content in general, kind of like TikTok videos, like little comedy and memes and things like that. And you have to be able to roll with the punches, right? So like your stories reach is going to change. The way that consumers are going to consume your content is going to change. We have to be multi-channel. We produce like tens of podcasts every single week. We have tens of live classes every single week. You start making things more boutique-y. You take the conversation offline and you have like physical meetups inside the capitals, or you have like Zoom classes where you're taking it from like YouTube video streaming with 10,000 viewers to like a boutique experience of like 100 over Zoom, right? So you just got to roll with the punches. Got to be adaptive. You got to have really great young talent working with you that understands like we're already not the target customer anymore. We're old boys. Like, like we're going to complain about TikTok or something, but the new gen's coming through and they do things different, right? They do things completely different.
So it feels like I'm just thinking of like your business, like what you're good at. Feels like you've got a lot of competence in teaching English and teaching in general. But it also feels like, yeah, you're kind of leveraging, I think a huge part of your engine is like this creator economy, growing influencers. I kind of want to go back to that. I don't know, have you guys thought about what else can we kind of build on top of that? Is there other, because learning language is just one thing, right? But you could be, I don't know, you could be selling makeup. You could be like, I don't know, you're selling therapy. You could be helping influencers become influencers and find what they want to do. I don't know. And do you have a vision maybe around what this whole influencer economy will look like and where your place is in that?
Yeah. So we're quite deeply involved in it. Like we're one of the largest. If you look at, there's a business called Hotmart, HOTMART. It's a unicorn that does payments just for creators, and I think we're their number one client globally. They're invested by the same investment fund as Fluency, General Atlantic, and so we are very plugged into this environment. So we know who the top creators in the country are, and not just our segment, but all revenue. We're super close with the owners and founders of these different payment platforms or these different LMS, like learning management system platforms. So yeah, we understand it pretty well. An option for us could be just consolidating this market, and why it's because as a creator, you don't have any equity. So something that we're looking at is like we enable the creator to build a business with equity. And the standard playbook in the past was like building a makeup brand, right? And I say makeup brand, but it's basically anything that's like a physical brand. It's like Mr. Beast with chocolate or something. The like V2 business model has been kind of like, I think it was called Mint with Ryan Reynolds, right? It's like building a subscription-based services business that then you kind of enter into someone's market, you annoy them, and then you turn around and sell it to them. And that was like a multi-billion-dollar exits at AT&T, right? But really, you're just transforming influence into monetization, and then the strategy around that has got to be really carefully done. And so we see that we could easily, we've got friends that do 10, 20, 30, $40 million in revenue. We could all get ourselves together into a holding company and have the ability to provide, liquidity on equity to each other by being able to put our revenue together, cross-sell into each other's bases. I would consider that as kind of like a plan B or plan C for our business, but it's something that we definitely look at with a lot of care.
Doesn't that feel just intuitively, it kind of feels like a bigger market, bigger opportunity?
Yeah, that's all good, but I just want to solve my problem, not just make money, right? So there's no good language learning solutions in the world. I want to solve that first. That would be super cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, you know what it's like. Like, it's really hard to learn a language. It's really hard to get any sort of scientifically backed methodology saying that, like, this is why you need to learn in a certain way. So I really want to fix that. That would be cool.
So you speak, how many languages do you speak?
Did I speak a bit of Mandarin? I speak Portuguese extremely fluently. So I live like day by day inside Portuguese.
How'd you learn Portuguese? Did you use Fluency?
Yeah, so we don't teach Portuguese to English speakers. We actually don't teach anything to English speakers around the world, right? Focused on developing markets. But I use flashcards as a fundamental kind of like, this is the content I'm learning. If you don't forget what you're learning every single time, you need to learn less. So I use a lot of flashcards, and I did a lot of tutoring over italki, which is kind of like the V1 marketplace business model back in the day, like big community led, teachers online, taking 15 to 20% take rate between teacher and student, right?
Yeah.
Just something that was super interesting to us. But yeah, a lot of flashcards, a lot of tutoring, and a lot of beers down at the bar talking to people.
Then living in Brazil helps.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Baptism by running a company and everyone speaks Portuguese
that helps.
It's a good way to learn. Yeah. Board meetings and banking.
Yeah. I was going to say, looking out at the landscape right now, do you see any interesting kind of big, wide open opportunities? Like, if you weren't working on this, what would you work on? Is there anything that you're like, man, this thing should be solved? Why isn't anyone solving this?
Yeah. So I had at the end of last year, I had 410 employees, and there's a few things that we're building. So one thing was we built a sales agent inside Fluency to replicate the entire sales process end-to-end B2C, and that's scaling super quickly. So we are moving from about 150 person sales team to significantly smaller, because a lot of that process of sales has been taken over by end-to-end sales bot, right? So this is something that we built internally, which is like very much needed by the market, but I'm sure it will be picked up and sorted by the market. Another problem was when you saw like GPT starting to get traction and all the companies talking about being able to have large productivity gains inside their businesses, all the CEOs were talking about it, everybody's writing about it. But the actual process of getting AI inside a business, people using it at scale, is something that really interested me. So I've got a co-founder who's running an amazing business called Expansive.com over in New Zealand, in Auckland, with a super small team. But the idea came, he was visiting in Brazil and helping me out with some stuff inside the company. And we were talking like, how do you implement like best practice prompting, what models to be using? What's the future of like, are you going to have like a model that is expert for, legal work or data science work or copywriting or anything, any sort of process that's inside a business? And how do you get that there ramped up super quick? So we built Expansive. I did the pre-seed of $1 million US to get that started, which is thinking about the future of humans and with co-working with AI. Inside that platform, we've got all the different LLMs available. So you can have access to super cheap models, super expensive models, big thinking models, et cetera, et cetera. You organize all your prompts, everything, every workflow and prompt that you have for automating and getting the productivity gains inside your business organized, and then socialize. So shareable across departments with all the other people inside the business. Like, we tested this here at Fluency. So we had to build, like, I was like, okay, I want to get really good at this topic. I kind of put in a head of AI education, and we built a course that we taught to all of our team. And then we had like an actual kind of like a university project where they had to deliver to us automating their job. So like, find a process that was either a pain for a student or a pain for themselves and automate it. We had 165 different projects delivered, of which 40 of them we took to production inside the business. So like, yeah, so this like looking internally and teaching staff how to use best practice AI, and then building the tooling and the platforms around that is something that I've been looking at really, really carefully, because there's two really big pieces here. One is major groups inside the workforce are going to miss this platform shift and this technology shift and will get left behind. It's kind of like the idea of like the Rust Belt in the United States. Like there are people that worked inside mining and then or construction or steel, and then it's just gone, right? When we outsource these jobs in history. So I'm concerned with the teaching of people to be able to keep up with this. So I've got a couple of projects in this space and the investments in the tooling around it so that it's truly giving the data governance that businesses need and insight from managers and for CEOs looking down into how it's been used inside organizations. It's something that I investing a lot of time and money in.
That's interesting. Any other so Expansive one? I think that we met that guy, the founder, at the farm trip.
Yeah. You guys should use it. It's banging, dude. We had to turn off, like we did early release, and it was just exploding and growing too fast. We had to turn off all user acquisition, and we were doing user acquisition with no marketing spends, just community-led actions. Wow. So wild. It was absolutely wild. And I'm looking at the moment right now, I'm looking like negotiating the purchase of a very large business, which is basically a university in Brazil, online university, and looking at just building the thesis around the future of work with AI. So this is the most important other thing that I do in Fluency is thinking about the impact on labor force, the impact on businesses. I'm already recognizing we are having layoffs and replacing jobs with agents already, you know? So it's going to have very large consequences for knowledge workers.
But don't you feel like that is kind of like the end state of this whole thing is just like you, maybe one other guy, maybe two other guys, and like just a bunch of agents?
Yeah, maybe. But like realistically, I'm freeing up I'm getting about $500,000 a month in productivity gains, dollars, and costs. So cost reductions from AI in 2024, 500K. I'm reallocating that 500K into like tech and to enabling my students to have more conversational classes. So like reducing my margin. I'm reallocating that into hiring high quality product people and having a more senior team. So my average salary in the company is going up from, let's say, $1,500 a month to like $3,500 a month, you know? So I'm not sure. Maybe the end state, I don't know if we're qualified to actually talk about it, but it's going to be a while before we get there. And when we get there, if that happens, the whole world has changed, right?
And what were the kind of first jobs that you automated with agents? Was it sales?
So, yeah, it's CX and sales. And sales. Yeah. It's about 200 headcounts total inside our business. Yeah. So it's super serious. Yeah. And I think that, engineering will be next, but you're still going to need really great systems architects and technology leaders to think about how to use it. I just think that we're going to go from archaically completely unproductive where you're shipping a feature every 2 weeks, which is like a couple of buttons on a screen, right? To like really fast iteration and really beautiful product design and like live real-time A/B testing with real users at all time. It's going to be great. I think we're going to look back and just be like, wow, that was so unbelievably archaic, everything that we did.
Right.
I hope so anyways.
You're very excited about the future of how AI will impact your business and businesses in general.
Yeah, for sure. But with and hashtag, this could be a human level risk. Everybody's talking about it. I mean, you guys don't need to talk to some random founder in Brazil to get an opinion on that. The world governments are putting their chips on the table, right?
All right, great to hear your opinion on it, since you built quite a sizable business. That's really interesting. Just curious, do you have any, so looking back at your, 17, 18-year-old self, getting into entrepreneurship, quitting high school, do you have any advice for people who are sort of that age thinking about getting into building a business?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Definitely like do it. If you think that if you think that that's your archetype, your personality, just do it. It's great. I think we build solutions that make the world advance. There's some people who've got a bad view of people that do business. I disagree with it. I think that we're constantly destructing and constructing things at all times, which is good. That's really, really good. Right. The other thing is just like try and get good advisors around you. That was what I missed. Like take risks, swing big, break things. Like it's totally okay. It's part of the destructive process of capitalism. And I want to see kids doing it, but you can learn from other people's mistakes without having to do the same mistake. You can make your own mistakes. It's something I learned, right?
Yeah.
Make the right type of mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And any plans on moving back to New Zealand, or are you kind of set in Brazil?
Yeah, so not right now. My wife is finishing her med degree in a few weeks, and we're having our first baby in about 6 weeks. We want her
Congratulations.
to. Thank you very much. We want her to spend a lot of time here and a lot of time in NZ. I fly back typically every 12 to 24 weeks, kind of every quarter. I'm back in New Zealand. I love being in New Zealand, love my family. I'm trying to invest in the ecosystem and the startup ecosystem and get it moving forward, right? But no plans yet to come home.
Okay, well, that's good that you're there every quarter. So yeah, we get to hang out. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure, guys, for sure.
Mark, any final thoughts from you?
No, Finn, this is awesome. Awesome to hear your journey, and you build a super impressive business, and I love that you're giving back, right? I love that like you're kind of taking everything you built and you're kind of bringing it back through endeavor and investing in businesses here and helping inspire the next generation. So I think that's amazing. Looking back on that kid who over leveraged in the candy stores, kind of like, do you ever look back on him? Do you ever think about that time in your life?
Yeah, of course, man. We're just talking about that between ourselves. But yeah, I think like you got to start somewhere, right? And so just like get behind the kids that want to build stuff, and hopefully try to not explode your entire family, but like swing for the fences, and try and take big risks, within the bounds of ethics.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love watching the new guys that are building stuff. Isn't it amazing, the New Zealand ecosystem now, that people are doing like more deep tech and more real stuff? Because it's cool. Yeah, I do like online teaching and creators and stuff, but I'm super proud of what the ecosystem's starting to build at the moment. Like
it's incredible. Yeah. I mean, I had no idea, like even 1.5 years ago, before I moved out to Australia, I had no idea what's going on down here. So it's really incredible to see. Yeah.
That's fantastic. It's fantastic. But yeah, thank you for your time, guys. It was a real good chat. Awesome. All right, much love, boys. Good luck.
All right,
thank you. Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in to TechMates. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with friends. We'll be back soon with more stories of Kiwi and Aussie founders reshaping the future and disrupting down under. Until next time, keep dreaming big and daring to disrupt.